Another day, another OpenAI is dead video. As they say, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Right? That is the mantra I'm living by. So that's why every single day I come here, look into the camera, and talk about OpenAI being dead. It puts a smile on my face. What can I say? Anyways, I am just trying to explain to everybody out there why the fundamental conceit of OpenAI is going to fail because of the design of their architecture, where it just simply doesn't make sense. As I've talked about before, Sam Altman thinks intelligence services should be a utility service like water or electricity, and you should get it from a centralized provider. And as I've talked about many times, that's just not how we build computer systems many ways. And when you look at artificial intelligence, I literally think it is a piss poor way to design AI architecture. And that is why I'm coming back day after day after day just to hammer home why it is I think what I do. And so what's kind of curious here, so this is coming from the information, why NVIDIA is trying to develop the world's best open source AI models. The chip giant is aiming to make a Nemotron for a leading edge model, spurring hardware demand, but raising questions about competition with customers and partners. So for some reason, we don't talk a lot about NVIDIA's open source models. It's just something that doesn't come up in a lot of conversations, but NVIDIA actually does have a lot of open source models out there that can do a lot of really interesting things. And basically the idea that NVIDIA has, or Jensen Huang has, is the more people that are able to run AI software, the more people there will be that will want to buy hardware that can run that software. So the issue is basically if everything is kind of in a walled garden, if Anthropic owns AI and OpenAI owns AI, then you've only actually got basically two customers. Again, that's one of the big problems we've been talking about in the AI world right now, is you end up with only two customers, which was a bit of an issue, right? Now, when they're buying a lot of product, it makes things easier because you can just basically ship a lot of product to one customer, especially when they're paying very high rates for that product. The issue is what happens when their business starts failing? What happens when they have to cut back on their purchases? What happens with anything, right? If you only have two major customers, really, then at the end of the day, you are relying on those customers for your entire business. And so what they want to do is they want to spread out the demand to many more customers out there. And how do you do that? One of the ways you do that is by providing this software that people can use essentially for free. And again, that's how you make that. That's how normal companies make money. They give away the software for free so that you buy the $40,000 GPUs, the $200,000 servers, and that type of thing. And so that's why they have the Nemotron series of models out there. And this is where I keep arguing too, again, with the whole issue of OpenAI, is that it's not local necessarily. Like when we talk about local, I think that it's the wrong word. So local will be on your computer. That's obviously local. Local would be on your server. So you have a server in your facility. That would be local. The issue is you can have cloud artificial intelligence that's simply not coming from these API providers, right? So you could set up in the cloud, right? So when we talk about cloud, so infrastructure as a service, you could have instances of AI servers at AWS. You could have instances of AI servers at Azure. You could have instances of AI servers at Vultr. Vultr was just at AI4. They're really pushing the whole idea of kind of like the virtual AI factory, right? And so basically the thing to be thinking about there is when we talk about you owning your AI system, that doesn't necessarily mean you have a rack of servers sitting in some room in your building. It could be that you simply have purchased instances of operating systems that are large enough and fast enough with GPUs or whatever else to essentially be able to run your models on somebody else's infrastructure, right? But the thing there is, and you say, well, if you're doing cloud, Eli, cloud is cloud, right? If you're doing it, what's the difference between Vultr and using OpenAI as an API? It's the API, right? Because you own the instance. The data going in, so you are sending data from your system to your system that you control. So the information going in isn't being tracked by anybody else, when it gets processed in the system that you control, nothing is being exfiltrated that you don't understand. Basically, only whatever you've coded, only what you've created will get exfiltrated. And when the response comes back, you know what's going on. So nobody is training off of your data. Nobody's grabbing metadata off of your data. Again, from a price point, again, if you go with Vultr infrastructure as a service, they're going to tell you what's going to cost. Like this instance is going to cost you $500 a month. And more or less, that's what it's going to cost you, right? Because the cool thing with infrastructure as a service is they purchase the hardware, they figure out what the cost of the hardware is. So therefore, what do they need to rent out the hardware in order to get a decent profit, a reasonable profit? And then that's what they sell it for. So like when you deal with infrastructure as a service, we've had infrastructure as a service for almost 20 years now. You don't see major price hikes for infrastructure as a service. Now you might get, when new products come out, you might be surprised that the price of those new products is much higher than you were expecting. But generally, right, if you're renting instances or whatever else, the price you pay for the instance is basically going to be the price for your instance. You're not worried about spikes. Whereas again, with OpenAI or Anthropic, one of the things you have to concern yourself with is maybe they'll throttle you because it's costing them too much, or maybe they raise prices or whatever else. So one of the cool things is, again, if you do AI as infrastructure as a service, even though, yes, it is in the cloud, it's like physically it is in the cloud, logically you own it. Some of you will be able to follow that. Others will not. So anyways, that is the interesting thing here with NVIDIA is, right, they're putting out their models so that you can own your systems, at least logically own your systems. NVIDIA is doubling down on its open source efforts, pouring investments into an ambitious new in-house AI model that it hopes will drive demand for its hardware, but that could also compete with customers and partners. Yeah, that's not a could, it will. Well, whether NVIDIA's open source models compete with customers, who knows, right? Again, are they going to go with NVIDIA's, or are they going to go with Meta's, or are they going to go with the Chinese model? But again, the open source models are definitely going to be competing with the proprietary ones. NVIDIA is aiming for the new model, the biggest of a family that it is calling Nemotron 4, to be on par in its performance with the best open source AI models in the world, according to several people who work on Nemotron. The research paper detailing NVIDIA's last big model had 570 authors, and employees said Nemotron 4 would involve even more people. Quote, everyone just wants to be involved at this point, one former employee said. That work built on a spate of recent open source releases from NVIDIA. On Tuesday, NVIDIA released Nemotron 3.5 Lightning, a smaller model that it said is designed to run AI agents as fast and efficiently as possible. The company also released free model routing software to help companies more easily make their own model routers. Multiple employees working on Nemotron said they expect the biggest Nemotron 4 model to have at least 1 trillion parameters. So that would be pretty big. Alibaba or whatever is coming out with a 10 trillion parameter model. I think Kimi K3 was, I don't know, trained to like 2 trillion parameters or whatever. So this is big. This is big, but it's also not world class as far as the parameters are concerned. That's approximately double NVIDIA's current largest model, Nemotron 3 Ultra, released in June. And a sign of NVIDIA's open source commitment, it has sharply increased spending on the compute used to train its own models. NVIDIA gets compute by renting AI servers back. Oh, Lordy. It always goes into the circular financing. NVIDIA gets compute by renting AI servers back from some of the cloud operators that buy its chips. As of April, it had increased the value of such multi-year cloud service commitments to $28 billion through the start of 2031, approximately triple the amount it reported a year earlier. And yeah, this is one of the reasons why people are getting frustrated with what's going on with AI financing. So basically what's happening here is you have a neocloud, so a neocloud provider buys hardware from NVIDIA, and then NVIDIA isn't backstopping. The NVIDIA isn't funding somebody else. NVIDIA is then literally just renting the services from the neocloud so they can get access to the services. And this wouldn't be that big a deal. Honestly, if everything wasn't so fucking stupid, it wouldn't be that big an issue. But it's like when you see that on top of the rest of the financial idiocy going on, that's one of the reasons people are getting more than a bit concerned. The top Nemotron 4 model isn't expected to be as powerful as the frontier models from OpenAI and Anthropic, such open source models are gaining traction among companies as a lower cost alternative for some work. NVIDIA is ramping up its open source efforts because a diversity of open models will spur more demand for its chips, according to conversations with more than a dozen current and former employees. NVIDIA can benefit, the thinking goes, if a broader range of companies from startups to large legacy businesses can use and build AI via high-quality, relatively low-cost models from NVIDIA optimized for its hardware, or if its efforts spur faster development of other open source models. So you might think about this almost as like the Apple way of doing things. Like you don't buy the Mac operating system. Generally, you probably can somehow, but most of us don't, right? The Mac operating system is there as a way to get you to buy the $20,000 hardware, whatever the hell the shit costs anymore, right? You don't buy the software, you buy the hardware. I think that's one of the ways to kind of think about this. So yeah, again, makes sense from a business standpoint. And quote, NVIDIA is investing in Nemotron because we believe every company in every country needs accessible, frontier open models to strengthen safety and security, accelerate innovation, and provide a foundation they can rely on from one generation to the next, NVIDIA's Vice President of Generative AI said in an email. So there you go. We have NVIDIA coming out swinging, basically against their own customers. So we'll see how this works at the end of the day. Again, that's going to be the big issue that NVIDIA deals with right now. One of the problems for NVIDIA is that they're so big, right? They're a $5 trillion company. They're selling all this AI hardware. The issue that they're running into is, one, people have already bought a lot of the AI hardware, right? Once you buy stuff, it takes a little while before you need to buy any new stuff. Beyond that, they're actually getting more and more competition. Just not even just the Chinese AI stack. We talk about this with Google TPUs. Google's creating processors. Meta's creating processors. Microsoft is creating processors. There's other ASICs processors that are being created out there. So they're getting more and more competition in that space. And the interesting thing there is that the big AI companies are actually using those different processors in order to do things like inference and that type of thing. So the market share that NVIDIA is able to grab is getting smaller. On top of that, right, they had 90% market share in China, and still until our government decided to kneecap them for some reason, they now have 0% market share in China. So one of the things you have to think about, like, again, as I talk about what's weird being older, is I remember when Yahoo was Yahoo. I remember when BlackBerry was BlackBerry. I remember when Intel, again, a good company, and Intel was Intel, right? Who would have thought 10 years ago that what happened to Intel would have happened to Intel, right? And there's this idea that because a company is currently successful, it will always be successful. And the reality is that's just not true. And to be clear, like Intel is the perfect example. How do you F up that bad? Like I get it, right? I remember when Yahoo was Yahoo and Google came out, and I remember choosing between Yahoo and Google just made more sense. It was just a cleaner interface. There wasn't any cost for switching or whatever else. So again, I understand why people went to Google. But like you look at Intel, right? It wasn't that long. They created all the processors. As I used to talk about before, when I had my business, I used to sell Intel processors. I used to sell almost completely Intel processors. We sold thousands of computers. And the reason that we did is because when I dealt with an executive, when I dealt with a customer, and I told them that we were selling an Intel processor, they felt like they understood what that meant. Right, because at that time, so AMD was coming out with processors, and they had Simprom, and Pron, and Optitron, and I don't know. They had all these weird ass fucking names. Like AMD had all these weird names. And Intel at the time had a very just kind of standard normal naming convention, that type of thing, right? And so basically that was the thing, is it's like when I went to sell a computer, trying to explain an AMD processor was a pain in the ass, right? Yeah, this AMD processor is as good as this Intel processor, right? It was easier just to be like, no, you just buy this Intel processor, right? I'm like, oh, that's a Celeron, that's an Intel, that's a Xeon. Yay, right? They thought they understood what the hell it was they were buying, right? It was just easy. And so again, like you look at what Intel was, like You sold Intel if for no other reason, it was just easier to get people to buy Intel. Like everybody's agreed, oh, it's Intel, then buy it. Right? AMD might be a little bit cheaper. AMD might be a little bit better. Right? It wasn't worth the half an hour argument with the customer to buy it though. They would just buy Intel. It's like, look, I can either save my customer 25 bucks and have a half an hour dumbass conversation, or I can just sell them Intel and be done with it. Right. And that's what it was. And again, that's how it was for so long. And then I don't know. I literally don't know what happened. I can't even like I mean, they're a microprocessor company. They're a silicon company. They got rid of their 5G. They literally sold their 5G division. They had was it Real Vision? They had computer vision. They had computer vision. They pioneered in computer vision. They sold their computer vision division. Like there's all this really cool stuff that they were doing. They couldn't even do it. They like what? Anyways, so the important thing to understand is, right, we look at Intel. What happened to Intel? And so I think that's one of the things to be thinking about with NVIDIA. Just because NVIDIA is currently a $5 trillion company, doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. Like think about this with Cisco. Cisco has been coming up a lot lately because of the whole relationship to the dot-com boom and bust. But right, Cisco hit their all-time high right before the dot-com bust. And they literally did not get to that same level again to what, like a year or two ago? It took them over 20 years to recover the value they lost with the dot-com bust. That's real, right? And so that's one of the things that NVIDIA has to worry about is, okay, they're king of the hill now, but how long is that going to last? And so that's why putting out things like these AI models makes sense from a business standpoint, because yes, it may be an attack against their current customers, but it's kind of like that creative destruction. It's better to burn some bridges with your current customers in order to build more bridges that will support your growth in the future. How well it's going to work out, who knows? So anyways, do you have experience with the Nemotron models? I actually have not played with them. I've heard good things about them. As I've said before, there are so many models at this point in time. I'm like tripping over models. Like, what about this model? Dude, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Have you tried the Nemotron model? What do you think about this with NVIDIA putting out open source models to compete with their actual customers? What do you think about the future of NVIDIA? Put your thoughts down below. If you like these episodes, do remember they're on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Link is down below. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, there's a link down there too. With that, see y'all later.